SJS, or more technically known as Stevens-Johnson syndrome, is a highly allergic reaction to certain drugs and substances. A more severe type of this reaction is called TEN, or toxic epidural necrosis. SJS and TEN can be deadly. The types of drugs that it usually affects are NSAIDs, nonsteroidal drugs such as, it can be Motrin, it can be certain Daypro. There's all sorts of drugs that's been linked to this horrible reaction. It usually starts as blisters. It can be some clouding of the eyes, and instead of getting worse, it gets worse over time, not better. And it can become very bad. It can be so bad the skin starts to peel and slough off, and the treatment ends up going to a burn center, because basically you lose your top layer of skin, the epidermis, and it's just like a burn victim where you have to worry about secondary infection as much as the original reaction. There's been many lawsuits concerning this. There was one just recently in the news about children's NSAID, a very large verdict. It's one of the first times that there has been a verdict on this certain medication, but there's been settlements for a long time in this type of case. Well, again, sometimes if it's caught soon enough and diagnosed soon enough, it can be something mild, and it may go away mostly on its own with some type of very benign treatment. But again, like I mentioned, sometimes it gets so severe, the skin is sloughed off, that blindness occurs. There's trouble with the internal organs because you just see the exterior. You don't see all the damage it does inside. But if treated correctly, there's certain protocols and procedures that can save the eyesight and can help save the problems to the internal damage. But like I said, the most severe cases are in the burn centers, and even with great treatment, there may be either fatal or very serious lifetime complications. Thankfully, it's very rare. A lot of sulfur medications, which it's very well known sulfur medications may cause this. That's why a lot of doctors ask you if you're allergic to sulfur medications. But it's very, very rare, and I hate to say it, a lot of times it goes undiagnosed because many doctors have never seen a case of it. They just saw it one day or 1 second of a day in med school because it is that rare, thankfully. It's gotten more and more complex every time. The theory of liability is that a drug manufacturer fails to warn about this. There's different types of failure to warn. It's failure to warn per just group. They don't warn, or they don't warn about the different risks for different, say, a man versus a woman. Different races may have a disproportional occurrence than other people. That's one type, and that is the theory of liability. Now, some drugs do warn. Some drugs do not have adequate warnings. But recently, which is sad for victims, the Supreme Court came out with a decision called Mensing. That's part of the name. And it says that an individual, no matter how badly they're harmed by this drug, no matter if you can prove the manufacturer knew about it, that you cannot sue if it is a generic or been made by generic manufacturers. Now, if it is what they call a branded drug, like the big name that produced the drug and started the patent, then yes, there's a case. Also, certain generics are made by the branded manufacturer, and those very slim few cases, we can still maintain an action. I will tell you, if you do have the symptoms, see a doctor. Ask what's wrong. If it continues to get worse, seek a second opinion with an infectious disease specialist, or even with a doctor who's familiar with burn victims, because that's where they see it the most. Also, don't worry whether you think it's generic or not. Consult a person who is familiar with Stevens-Johnson syndrome cases or TEN cases, and they can find out from the pharmaceutical records who made it, and we can find out and either proceed or tell you that we can't help. But we want to help because it is a devastating, insidious reaction. You really can't predict it. I have dealt with many cases concerning SJS and TEN, worked on many cases involving this, and have regrettably seen way too many of them. So yes, I devoted part of my practice to just this area and work with other attorneys throughout the country on these cases. Call my 800 number, 800-693-6903, or go to my website, www.gregjoneslaw.com.